Welcome to another exciting edition of American Warrior Radio, the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, and online worldwide at 1300WMEL.com, sponsored by AVET Project. Folks, this program is all about supporting our troops and their families, both past and present. So please get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, maybe a pen and paper, hard for me to say, to jot down a note or two, because we're always efforting to bring you information that you can use and share with others. With that said, let's roll down the runway and get this show off the ground. My name is Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran, retired legal advocate for veterans, and founder of AVET Project. But you regular listeners know I never fly through the airwaves alone, so we'll be joined by my co-host Glenn McGuffey here in a bit. In the meantime, before we get on the phone with Glenn, who is busy as always working to help vets, I gotta cover a couple things. The 715th Military Police Company has just deployed for Afghanistan for the third time, folks. AVET Project was integral in making it all happen and helping them and their families in this transition as they deploy overseas. And we're going to be talking about that here in a moment, because there's a lot of news to share about that. So stay tuned for that. Right now, I want to introduce my co-host, Glenn McGuffey. Are you on the line, Glenn?
Yeah, good morning. This is Glenn McGuffey, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Services team, and thrilled to be here. Sorry I couldn't be in the studio today with you today, Garrett. I got a couple things to go through with you that some will be repeats that our long-term listeners are used to hearing, but we continue to see in our office on a weekly basis issues for claimants that make their claims more difficult, delay their claims, and other information that our listeners need to know about the VA claims business.
For sure, and I'm glad you were able to join us. I know how busy you are today, and it is a beautiful weekend, folks, and I know, this is Saturday, tomorrow's Easter, but we're glad you tuned in, because, Glenn, you got some good information about the topics you just mentioned. Let's go into them. What do we got going?
Okay, well, first off, I'd like to reiterate, again, people who've listened for a while have heard this before, I'm sure, and that's, I strongly encourage you not to file your claim online. The VA has an online application site.
The old VONAP.
The VONAP, that's right. Veterans Online Application is what that stands for. And I was just finishing up looking at it again to make sure I was giving you current information and to back up what I normally say about it. And I want to say the same things I always said, except it's even more confusing now. I just went through it, and it has a lead-in that tells you can now only file a claim online if you were enrolled in e-benefits, and that's a good thing. I encourage you to do that. That's a topic for another day. But then when you go into the instructions for VONAP, and it's not even called VONAP anymore, it's called Veterans Online Application, VOA.
Okay.
But VONAP, the instructions are still there as if you are not going through e-benefits. So, hey, that's pretty doggone confusing.
Yeah, it sure sounds it.
From the get-go. And then when you file it, you restrict it into the number of attachments that you can put with it. You can put up to 5 files with it, and those can be document files, spreadsheets, pictures, text files, or Adobe Acrobat files. And I'm willing to bet after I said all of that, some of those types of files, and maybe even all of them, some of the folks out there probably don't even know what that is. Nor is it an easy process to put it in that file format and then attach the thing to the claim and then pray that it gets there. So that's another confusing part of the process.
And you know, what it is doing for the VA, what they hope it will do, is streamline and make faster the way that they rate the cases, but it's not necessarily true. Like you said, you can only attach so much information, and what is eventually going to happen anyway, Glenn?
Well, eventually you're going to end up having to send stuff in by mail anyway to them, because they're going to send you a letter saying, okay, we got your claim. Now here's a letter required by a federal court to tell you how the VA rates claims and tell you what kind of information you can submit in support of the claim, which ones we will help you get if you can tell us what ones exist, and which ones you can submit on your own, like private doctors. And if you tell them that you've got military treatment records at a military treatment facility right now, if you tell them that, the VA would help and go get that. Those kind of issues. But, I mean, you're starting off from the get-go with something that's confusing to get your arms around. It gets more confusing as you go through the instructions. And then the big reason that I encourage people not to do this is because you will end up not realizing that you should have appointed a veterans representative organization like American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and some of the other major players out there as a claimant representative, because you've got like a much larger chance of gaining approval of the benefits you earn through service to our country. The whole process is legalistic, confusing, and takes years of training for people to understand it and know how to positively manipulate it in the client's favor. And I'm not talking manipulate in a bad sense. I'm talking
Of course not.
manipulate it in your favor the way it's supposed to be. So no wonder there's a huge backlog. So, let me finish that thought real quick and say, please come to our office out in the County Government Center. We're in Bravo Building, out in Viera, and we're on the first floor. You can't miss it. There's signs with arrows pointing to the Veterans Service Office on the wall. And you can also contact us at 321-633-2012. 321-633-2012.
So it's best to start with you rather than come to you after their claim's been confused and gone through the process of the electronic application.
Yeah, excellent transition there, because that's what we're seeing is folks who started these claims themselves, and then the VA starts sending them correspondence, and they go, I thought I already sent this, I don't know what they're talking about, help. And they come to us for help, and it's a little harder to reconstitute what they've already done and then pick it back up. I mean, we can do it, and we will do it. It just takes a little more time that way.
Of course.
If you come with us first, I'm pretty doggone sure that we'll get it done the right way, and that in itself is going to help speed the process up, if you can use the word speed and VA in the same breath.
Yeah, well, you made another good point, and that is that if you file electronically, you're not going to be able to select a power of attorney, an organization that can help marshal your claim through, because you have to have the organization there with you when you sign over your power of attorney so that they can represent you, and it's only so that they can represent you before the VA. They can't sell your car or your house or any of that. It's a very limited power of attorney. Whereas if they come into your office, they can choose whichever organization they see fit to do that, and you'll get the paperwork over to the regional office, have it date stamped. It's just much easier in the long run to go straight to a credentialed, qualified service representative, and certainly the county veteran service offices here in Florida can do that.
Oh, absolutely. And that transition is very nice when I talk about if you can use speed and VA in the same breath, to say our folks out there listening may or may not have heard about the huge problem with the continuing VA backlog. Now, I've only been doing this 22 years, and the VA backlog has existed from the first day I came to work here, and probably long before that, unfortunately. And it's getting larger, not smaller. But I wanted to give our folks, particularly if you filed a claim and are waiting on results, we get a ton of phone calls about, where's my claim? I filed it several months ago. I haven't got a decision, so forth and so on. And I understand people's concerns. We try and tell them up front to be patient, but I think after 2 or 3 months they forget that.
Right.
But
Well, when I was in your office just the other day, you were explaining to me that folks that had filed a claim, say in December and late last fall, came in asking for status, and some of their paperwork hadn't even been logged in the system yet.
exactly.
So,
And I had to make several phone calls just to find out that their paperwork still existed and hadn't been lost somewhere.
right. And that's another thing, a good point to mention right now. Whether you go through Glenn or not, anytime you want to introduce something, some evidence or an additional claim or something like that, go through Glenn. If you respond to what you mentioned, that VACA letter on your own, it's probably best to make sure that they receive it, to have it sent return receipt requested, certified return receipt requested, so you can actually prove that they got it.
Oh, absolutely. And also, the problem there is if you reply to that VACA letter on your own, that's Veterans Claims Assistance Act is what that stands for. If you reply to that on your own, unfortunately, that thing usually comes with 5 or 6 blank forms, and if you're not clear, you will fill out 5 or 6 blank forms that we have probably already done if you've been here, and in most cases, all of them don't need to be filled out, and any of them need to be filled out.
Sure, sure.
It wastes a lot of time.
Right, and you hinted upon, hopefully you'll elaborate on these timelines regarding VA claims. What kind of info have you got for that?
Yeah, okay. Well, everybody knows the pension claim we talked about before, more in the street as the A&A claim, the aid and attendance claim, to help get money to help keep people, wartime veterans and their survivors in adult daily living facilities, especially the ones that are on the lower income side of the scale. And that for a widow is taking 14 or more months to be decided, while they're still in an assisted living facility this whole time, trying to find ways to make ends meet and get the money to pay for it. So it just, I don't know any other way to put it, but it's a horrible situation.
Okay, so regardless of the causes or the reasons, it's taking 14 months for a widow's pension to get processed and approved or denied, actually. And now,
Just a decision, yeah.
that's the word, just to get a decision out of them. What other information have you got regarding, say, disability compensation claims?
Yep, and then if it's a veteran, it's going to take somewhere in the 6 month range if there's no problems with the papers, and so you can see the big differential in processing, and the pension center says until they can catch up on all of them, it'll continue to be that differential because they're giving priority to the veterans over to the survivors, and I can't argue that, but they need to catch them all up. Of course, they need to catch everything up, and that's what we're talking about here.
So, Glenn, what do you say if somebody out in the community, because you and I are very familiar with the grapevine and rumors that float around, in this Space Coast area, there are some guys out there saying they can get A&A, aid and attendance pension claims processed in as little as 3 months. What do you say about that?
I would say I wasn't born in Missouri, but I still want you to show me because that's not happening. I don't know what they mean. I guess it boils down to what they're telling people the word processing means. I think what they're telling them is till you hear from the VA, and probably in that time frame you'll hear about the Veterans Claims Assistance Act package that we were just talking about.
Right.
You're by no means going to get a decision in 99% of the cases in that time frame.
Right, and
and then move along here a little bit because let's talk about veterans claims for compensation. That's for service-connected disabilities. That's what that word is all about, and that's if you file for 8 or more issues. That's a key figure right there for that the VA uses as a cut point in their tracking guidance. If you file for 8 or more issues, it's going to take 9 to 12 months for veterans claims. And the closer you are to 8, the closer you are to 9 months. The further away from 8 issues you are, the more it is a year or more to get a decision on them.
Okay, and what if it's just a single or a couple issues that somebody files on their original application?
Well, some of the issues you file in your original application could be anything that your service connected for. It could be the below the knee loss of a limb. It could be a heart condition suffered on active duty. It could be a knee condition or any other type of physical problems you had on active duty that are chronic and continuing. There's still a problem today since the day that the problem started for you, whatever that type of problem may be.
Right.
And there are people out there who subscribe to the school of if you had a cold and you had the flu and you had any reason you ever went to the military treatment facility, put it down as a claim, even though 9 of the 10 things you put down may be symptoms and not a claim per se. So
okay.
that in itself is self-inflicted slowness.
Right, and we don't want to discourage somebody if they think 8 is the cutoff to get a, as you said, speedy or speedier decision. We don't want them to say, well, I won't submit that 9th one. If it's well-grounded, and we've discussed that issue many times on the program, if it's a well-grounded claim, then whatever the condition is and however many they are, you want to get it processed.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm not trying to that's an excellent point, because I'm not trying to scare people away from putting 8 or more on their claim. Certainly, if you've got 8 or more issues that are valid, as Garen is saying, we want you to put them down. My point here is to just make you aware of what the cut points are and what if it's 8 or more, it's going to take longer, and that just makes sense. If it's more than 1, it's going to take longer. So.
Of course. And like we always say, we're not here to beat up on the VA. We want to work with them. And I think, Glenn, you're making some outstanding points. You're really saving not only the veteran, but even the VA a lot of time and heartache by coming in and doing the claim right the first time.
Oh, absolutely. So we appreciate that plug, as we always do. And, of course, that brings up the question of, well, about how long is it taking with less than 8 issues, and that's taken on average around 6 months. And some of these people that can start the claims on active duty up to 6 months before they get off active duty. So if they started the claim on active duty and they had less than 8 disabilities that they were claiming for service connection, at least in theory, right after they got off active duty, after they retire or separate, the claim could be there waiting for them.
Oh, for sure. I want to touch on one other thing you mentioned, and that is that the new electronic processing suggests that, well, actually maybe demands that you be on e-benefits, which is a great website. It's kind of a joint venture between the Department of Defense and the VA. And then there's My Health AVET, which I'll speak about in a moment. But that e-benefits, what are some of the benefits to a vet signing up with e-benefits, Glenn?
Well, some of the benefits are you can check on the status of your claim yourself.
That's a big one right there.
That's a biggie, because if you try and call the 1-800-827-1000, let me give you that number again, 1-800-827-1000 VA hotline number, which is one of 9 places throughout the United States. Most of the time you will never get through. You'll get through to the part that says, due to an unusually heavy workload, we ask that you call us back later. Goodbye, and hangs up on you.
Yes, they do. And I don't care if you're calling from Vermont or California or Oregon. That number is the same nationwide, 1-800-827-1000. And as you mentioned, I'm not sure who's driving that car, but it needs repaired, because that's just...
It needs huge repair. It needs replacement.
Yeah, it really does, because if a vet tries to contact the VA directly and is simply told, look, try back another time, and hung up on, that's not serving anybody's purposes.
That's correct.
But they can always get a hold of you at your office. One more time, Glenn, what's the number here locally if you're living on the Space Coast or anywhere in Central Florida? Actually, nationwide, because, Glenn, we've talked about this before. You'll field calls from Indiana or Oregon, wherever, if somebody has a question.
Oh, absolutely. And get you started with the process and get you hooked up with the people in your neck of the woods. But usually people are seeking clarification of information or the information itself, we'd love to help you out. And you can do that by calling us at 321-633-2012.
That's a number, you guys. I told you to grab a pen and paper at the beginning of the program. That's one you want to write down. And again, Glenn, I really appreciate all the hard work you do all the time. And yeah, I wish obviously that you were here in the studio with us, but thank you so much for dropping in and sharing some good information with the listeners.
Okay, it's my great pleasure. And let me just close real quick and remind folks, like we told them last week, make sure your beneficiary on your VA insurance policy, if you have one in effect, is current, because if you pass away, that's who's going to get your VA insurance proceeds. I don't care how many times you've changed relationships or whatever else you wanted to do, you got to keep that current.
Oh, for sure. And I think we'll even discuss some more of the insurance details and programs when you get back in the studio on a future episode. But that's a great point. Always keep your information and your address and contact information with the VA up to date.
Yeah, good segue. You betcha.
Okay. Again, Glenn, enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's a beautiful Saturday out there, so have a great one, and we'll see you again next week.
Look forward to it. Take care, and as always out there, folks, it's early in the show, but don't forget to think of them.
Awesome. Folks, that's my co-host, Glenn McGuffey, calling in because he couldn't be here in studio today. It is a beautiful day. It's the day before Easter. I want to get this out there real quick. Today, when the program's over, we are going to be out there at Cocoa Beach Pier with the surfing contest. It's the Easter, the 49th year that they've done this. And AVET Project's therapy dogs, Koa and Boaz, little chihuahuas, are going to be out there riding the surf. So come out and have some fun and join us. A special guest who's going to be judging the contest, Commander B. Perry, will be on site. But come on out to the Cocoa Beach Pier. It's from noon to noon 30 today. So don't miss that. After you get done listening, or you're in your car listening to American Warrior Radio, pop on over to the pier and have some fun, because we're gonna enjoy. Whether they're gonna surf or not, I don't know, but you'll see when you come out there. It should be a fun time. I'm glad you tuned in today. We've got a lot more to go over, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. This is American Warrior Radio on AM 1300 WMEL.